Greetings to all who wish to be greeted. I'm Dahlia Dahl, and this is Scholastic Haiku, the game show where knowledge rules. I am joined by my lovely players. From Mascoutah, we have Clara, Max, Kaylee, and Chase. From Flora, we have Jillian, Kendra, Xavier, and Gabriel. Or it's Xavier, right? Pronounce the X. You pronounce the X. It's very important. So, players, today we are going to be playing Scholastic Haiku. I assume you know how it works? All nods. But today I'm going to explain it anyway, in case this is your first time viewing, dear audience. You are going to receive a series of questions in the form of toss-ups, in which I will ask a question, and then you will have 10 seconds to buzz in and answer correctly. If you answer incorrectly, the other team gets a chance to steal, and if you interrupt me before I finish asking the question, then the other team automatically gets 5 points if you're wrong. So if you're going to interrupt me, know your stuff. It is time for question 1. So, without further ado, players, let's begin. What basketball team, which used its first overall pick on Aaliyah Boston in 2023, picked first overall again in 2024 when it selected Caitlin Clark? Max.
The Indiana Fever.
That is correct. You get to answer the bonus question, and any of you can answer that without buzzing in. What capital city, which was formerly known as Batavia while under colonial rule, is the most populous metropolitan in Southeast Asia? I'm sorry, metropolis.
Jakarta.
That is correct. What author wrote the memoir Knife about a 2022 incident at the Chautauqua Institution where Hadi Matar stabbed him per a fatwa issue by Iran? You are out of time, players. We were looking for Salman Rushdie, Ahmed Salman Rushdie. So you do not get to answer the bonus question. What collection of quatrains was loosely translated in 1859 by Edward Fitzgerald from work attributed to Persian astronomer-poet Omar Khayyam? We were looking for Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Rubaiyat. The snowball method, which reduces what? The snowball method reduces what quantity, which is often measured in its ratio to equity and is the amount of money that one party owes to another? Chase.
Debt.
That is correct. Really glad you know that one, Chase Bank. You get to answer the bonus question now. Tamino rescues Pamina and joins Sarato's temple in what opera by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart?
The Magic Flute.
That is correct, Kaylee. I appreciate you answering quickly, though it does not get you bonus points. Herbert Lindlar created an example of what substances that decrease a reaction's activation energy, thus speed... Chase.
Enzymes.
That is incorrect. Flora, you automatically get 5 points and a chance to steal. Would you like me to read the whole question?
Yes.
Fantastic. Herbert Lindlar created an example of what substances that decrease a reaction's activation energy, thus speeding up a reaction without being consumed. Kendra.
Catalyst.
That is correct. Catalysts or catalytic substances. You get to answer the bonus question. What hero avenged his father Agamemnon by killing his mother Clytemnestra?
Gilgamesh.
That is incorrect. Mascoutah, would you like to steal?
Menelaus.
Say again?
Menelaus?
That is incorrect. We were looking for Orestes. Orestes. We now have a media question. Please direct your attention to the television screen in which you will see an image and then have to answer a question about what it is. Jorge R. Gutierrez directed and co-wrote Chase.
Book of the Dead.
That is incorrect. Flora, would you like to steal? Would you like me to read the whole thing? Okay. Jorge R. Gutierrez directed and co-wrote this 2014 animated fantasy rom-com with Doug Langdale. The movie starred Channing Tatum, follows a bullfighter on a spiritual journey during the Day of the Dead. He wants to meet the expectations of his loved ones and win his best friend's heart. Name this cartoon. Kendra.
The Book of Life.
That is correct. You get to answer the next question, which is a toss-up and not the bonus question. What woman wrote the column My Day, helped Marian Anderson sing at the Lincoln Memorial, and supported the New Deal policies of her husband Franklin? Kaylee.
Eleanor Roosevelt.
That is correct. Eleanor Roosevelt. You get to answer the bonus question. What media tycoon and leader of the Forza Italia party resigned as Italy's prime minister in 2011 amid a scandal regarding his bunga bunga parties?
Giuseppe.
That is incorrect. Flora, would you like to steal?
Daffieri.
That is also incorrect. We were looking for Silvio Berlusconi. Silvio Berlusconi. Bunga bunga parties. What city where Chihuly Garden is, or what city where the Chihuly Garden is at the base of an observation tower built for the 1962 World's Fair is on Puget Sound in Washington? Max.
Seattle.
That is correct. You get to answer the bonus question. What Canadian river flows from the Great Slave Lake through the town of Inuvik in the Northwest Territories before reaching the Arctic Ocean? You are out of time. Flora, would you like to steal?
The Alberta.
That is incorrect. We were looking for the Mackenzie River. Mackenzie River. What dinosaur genus is exemplified by a fossil called Apex on sale at a 2024 auction, which has a spiked tail and a row of plates down? Max.
Stegosaurus.
That is correct. Stegosaurus is correct. You get to answer the bonus question. Wings, propellers, and sails are examples of what objects that can produce a high lift and low drag depending on their angle of attack? You are out of time. Flora, would you like to steal?
No answer.
Sorry, no answer is incorrect. We were looking for airfoils or aerofoils or hydrofoils, or you could have just said foil. Pencil and paper ready. It's a math question, y'all. What is the only fixed point of the sine of x, or in other words, the only value of x at which x equals the sine of x? Kaylee.
0.
That is correct. You get to answer the bonus question. The first freestanding nude male since antiquity was a depiction of what biblical figure made in bronze by Donatello in the 1440s?
David.
That is correct. What battle where Charles O'Hara led the surrender to George Washington took place in 1781 in Virginia and mostly ended the Revolutionary War? Max.
The Battle of Yorktown.
The Battle of Yorktown is correct. You get to answer the bonus question, turning the world upside down. What once enslaved general emerged as the most successful commander in the Haitian Revolution prior to his arrest by Charles Leclerc? Charles Leclerc. Names are hard sometimes. In 1802.
Toulouse-Lautrec.
Say that again?
Toulouse-Lautrec.
That is correct. That is correct. It's another media question. Please turn your attention to the television set. This is an American singer-songwriter, actress, and a judge on The Voice. She is known as the voice of a generation and has a 4-octave range. Some of her most famous songs include Genie in a Bottle, Lady Marmalade,
Christina Aguilera.
That is correct. Christina Aguilera. What man whose yacht Kourou was the subject of a 2022 dispute involving a Rotterdam bridge owns Blue Origin and founded the online retailer Amazon? Max.
Jeff Bezos.
That is correct. Jeffrey Preston Bezos. You get to answer the bonus question. Lavinia has her tongue torn out in what extremely bloody Shakespeare tragedy named after a Roman general?
Julius Caesar.
That is incorrect. Flora, would you like to steal?
King Lear.
That is also incorrect. You might have heard has her tongue torn out. And both of those characters are men. We were looking for Titus Andronicus. Titus Andronicus. And you guys hear that? Sounds like it's time for the terrifying, the elusive lightning round. Timed that perfectly. You will get the choice between one of 4 categories, and by you, I mean Flora. You will get the choice between one of 4 categories, and you will have 60 seconds to answer through several questions. And Mascoutah, you will get to choose next from the remaining 3. So, Flora, your categories are female literary title characters, American landmarks, con works, give these words that start with the consecutive letters C-O-N, and Catholicism.
Con words.
Con words. I thought it said con works for a second. All right, con works. Give these words that start with the consecutive letters C-O-N. Your 60 seconds begins in 3, 2, 1. Faith in something often preceded by self. You do have the option to pass.
Pass.
To admit to a crime.
Pass.
A legally binding agreement.
Contract.
Correct. Bits of paper made for throwing.
Pass.
Protruding outward.
Concave.
That is incorrect. Opposite of abstract.
Construct.
That is incorrect. Type of twins once known as Siamese.
Conjunction.
That is also incorrect. The implied meaning of a word.
Pass.
Performed in unison, often described as an effort.
Pass.
A gathering. Sorry, you're out of time. Faith in something, often preceded by self, is confidence. To admit to a crime is to confess. Bits of paper made for throwing are confetti. Protruding outward is convex. Concave is the opposite. Opposite of abstract is concrete. Type of twins, once known as Siamese, are conjoined. The implied meaning of a word is connotation. Performed in unison, often described as an effort, is concerted. And the one we didn't get to, a gathering space such as one in an airport terminal, is concourse. Mascoutah. Same rules apply to you. Your categories are female literary title characters, American landmarks, and Catholicism.
We'll take American landmarks.
American landmarks. Now, if you don't get this one, we will revoke your citizenship. So better get all of them right. Your 60 seconds to name the states that are home to these landmarks begin in 3, 2, 1. The Alamo in San Antonio.
Texas.
Correct. Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell.
It's Pennsylvania.
Correct. The Empire State Building.
New York.
That is correct. The Golden Gate Bridge.
California.
Correct. Gateway Arch.
It's Missouri.
Correct. Mount Rushmore.
South Dakota.
Correct. Craters of the Moon, which is in the Snake River Plain.
Pass.
Fort Laramie. Fort Laramie. Or perhaps Laramie.
Pass.
The Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island.
Pass.
Castillo de San Marcos, which was built in the late 17th century.
Pass.
Mount Rushmore. Sorry, you're out of time. Mount Rushmore was South Dakota. Did you already get that one?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, my mistake. Craters of the Moon, which is in the Snake River Plain, is Idaho. Fort Laramie is in Wyoming. Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island is Michigan. And Castillo de San Marcos, which was built in the late 17th century, is Florida. We would have also accepted any of the acronyms, or any of the shortenings for those. So CA for California. Just a little tip. Back to the toss-ups. What composer, whose only opera was Pelléas and Mélisande, wrote piano works like the Suite Bergamasque, and whose third movement is Clair de Lune?
Debussy.
Say that again?
Debussy.
That is correct. You get to answer the bonus question. The extremely large galaxy ESO 38376 belongs to what common class of gas-poor galaxies that lack arms, unlike spiral galaxies?
Cluster.
You did technically get it before the time went out, so do you want to say that again?
Cluster.
That is incorrect. Flora, do you want to steal?
Non-spiral.
No, it's elliptical galaxies, but I appreciate the cleverness, but we can't accept that, unfortunately. What poet wrote about a bird that pursues its solitary way into a waterfowl and depicted the innumerable cavern of the dead in Thanatopsis? Xavier.
Edgar Allan Poe.
I'm sorry, Xavier. And also, no, you got that incorrect. Mascoutah, would you like to steal? No? Okay. William Cullen Bryant. I'm looking for William Cullen Bryant. You do not get to answer the bonus question. You get to answer the next question. What river, which gives its name to the extinct Baiji species of dolphin, is spanned by the Three Gorges Dam Three Gorges Dam? Kaylee.
Yangtze.
That is correct. The Yangtze River. You get to answer the bonus question. What author who wrote about Princeton student Amaury Blaine in This Side of Paradise followed it with a novel, The Beautiful and Damned?
James.
Just James?
Just James.
That is incorrect, unfortunately. Would have been wild. Flora, would you like to steal?
Austin.
Austin? No, unfortunately, no. You don't get points for this, but it's also the author of The Great Gatsby.
F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Yeah, F. Scott Fitzgerald. Yep. Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald. For radiation, luminosity is equivalent to what quantity that is the rate of doing work, which can be measured in watts or a unit named for horses? Kaylee.
Power.
That is correct. We would have also accepted horsepower. In 2023, the U.S. Supreme Court adopted a voluntary code of ethics in response to ProPublica's investigations into gifts received by what justice? Sorry, you are out of time. Flora, would you like to steal?
Ginsburg.
That is incorrect. We were looking for Clarence Thomas. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was not on the Supreme Court in 2023 on account of passing away. We now have a media question. Please turn your attention to the television screen. This actress is noted for her appearances in the HBO drama series Euphoria, as well as the first season of the anthology series The White Lotus, for which she received 2 Primetime Emmy nominations. More recently, she produced and starred in the horror film Immaculate. Name this celebrity. Clara.
Sydney Sweeney.
That is correct. Sydney Sweeney. What American artist who is married to Lee Krasner created Lavender Mist and was an abstract expressionist nicknamed Jack the Dripper? Kaylee.
Jackson Pollock.
That is correct. Jackson Pollock. You get to answer the bonus question. A type of sweet orange is named after what third most populous Spanish city which sits along the Mediterranean Sea?
Valencia.
That is correct. What type of creatures exemplified by the sons of Ivaldi are expert craftsmen with short stature and include Gimli from The Lord of the Rings?
Dwarfs.
That is correct. We would have also accepted dwarves. Billie Jean and Beat It are found on what album by Michael Jackson, the best-selling album of all time?
Thriller.
That is correct, because this is Thriller Night. What Englishman has a namesake effect that causes rotation of light's polarization, studied electrolysis, and developed a namesake law of induction? Xavier.
Inducci.
That is incorrect. Mascoutah, would you like to steal? Can I get an audible passing?
We're going to pass.
Okay, well, I bet you would have gotten it if it was a Michael Jackson album. We were looking for Michael Faraday. We would have also accepted the Faraday effect. In 2005, Huygens probe landed on the surface of what largest moon of Saturn? Gabriel.
Titan.
That is correct. I'm sorry, that was a bonus question. I'll just read the next question as a bonus, because you got that right. What poem whose protagonist is given a girdle by Lady Bertilac describes a knight of the Round Table who beheads an oddly colored opponent?
Guinevere.
That is incorrect. Mascoutah, would you like to steal?
No answer.
All right, we were looking for Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Oh, that doorbell means that it is the end of our show. Players, Flora, you have 80 points, which is impressive, but it does not get you the win because Mascoutah has 300 points. This has been our show, and I have been Columbo telling you just one more thing. Have a good night.